Welcome. So 7.1. Here's our agenda for this unit. Solving systems of equations. So we're going to start by learning about the equation of a circle, because we're going to be using this equation when solving systems of equations. Talking about systems of equations, you have had some exposure to that with linear equations. I think that was probably 8th grade. So hopefully some of this will come back to you when we go over that, but that will be in 7.2 and 7.3. All right, so standard form for a circle is written here. This is something that you're going to need to memorize. Okay. Where h and k is the center of the circle and r is the radius. So just remember this is r squared. So if you look at something, well, I guess we'll just do it a problem. Let's look at number. Example 1, it says identify the center and radius for each equation. So you'll have lots of problems and practice with that on the homework. But they want us to identify the center. Well, we know the center is h and k, right? And h and k, all right? But if you notice that the equation has a minus h and minus k. So just like it was when we had vertex form or intercept form, whenever we take the h and k out, it's going to change its sign. Okay, so right there, remember, anything in parentheses changes its sign when you take it out. I guess I should be more specific. It's just going to be your h and your k. Okay, and like we did with intercept form, that would be your p and q. When you took those out, it would change its sign. Or if we use vertex form, when we took the h out of vertex form, that would also change its sign just because of the way it's set up with the equation. All right, so if we want to write down the center, I'll just usually write it as C, like that. And then the center, it's an ordered pair, h comma k, so it's going to be -10 comma -5. Again, it's going to change the sign when we take it out. And then with the radius, well, this is radius squared, so how do we figure out what the radius is? Okay, well, it's just going to be the square root of that. So the radius is going to be 5. All right? So I'd like you to try and see if you can do the rest of them. I feel like with an example, you should be able to do the rest. I'm going to go over them, but I'd like you to try and pause and give it a try. So the center here would be -9 comma -1 in a parenthesis, and the radius here would be 4. So the square root of 16 is 4. For C, we've got, oh, I changed that. That's good. Okay. So your notes, well, I'll get to that. So here, the center here would be 14, +14 and -8. And the radius here would be the square root of 15. So we don't want to leave our answers as decimals because that rounds and it doesn't give us an exact answer. So if we can have it as an exact answer, like the square root of 15, we should leave it. All right, so here, D center is -12 comma 6, and then the radius would be the square root of 12. And I think on yours it says 13, but I changed it so that we had an example of where we can actually simplify a radical. Okay, we've done that before. Simplifying radicals is where we do a factor tree. So 2 and 6 and 2 and 3, groups of 2 come out. We use groups of 2 because it's a square root. So that would end up giving us 2 square roots of 3. All right? So just make sure you simplify like that on your homework and tests and things like that. Okay, so here we got a center would be 2 comma 3. Again, it just changes its sign when you take them out. And then the radius is the square root of 1, which is just 1. And here we got a center of 4 comma -13 and a radius of the square root of 8. And if you did the factor tree for there, you get 2 and 4, 2 and 2, So we'd take out a group of 2's, 2 square roots of 2. Okay, I guess I did that one. We're also going to have ones where, I probably should add this for next year, is an example, something that would be more like, we'll add up, but this will be G. A problem that's something like this: x squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 9. Something like that. Okay, so here's another example. If, like the others, we all had numbers inside of our parentheses. So this one, G, we could write this as x minus 0 squared. So if something's missing in the parenthesis, it's just going to be a 0. So here, our center here would be 0, 2, and have a radius of 3. Okay, so just be aware of that, where you can have a parenthesis that the h is 0, or the k is 0, or both. Okay, you could have something like x squared plus y squared is equal to 9. So where the center would be 0, 0, and the radius would be 3. All right, so next, they also want us to be able to find the center and radius of giving a graph. Okay, and then it says, then write the equation for the center of the circle in standard form. Okay, so we want to first find the center. So center would just be the center of the circle. So here would be 0, 3. And the radius, so to find the radius is you just go any direction you want from the center. So radius is half of the diameter, so from the center to the circle. So this would be 1. Okay, sometimes there's these half ticks. Make sure you be careful with that. Always look, don't just assume that they're 1. So the radius is 1, and then we'll plug that into our equation. So x minus 0 squared plus y minus 3 squared is equal to 1 squared. And then we need to also always simplify. So if we have a 0 in, then we don't need to keep that. We should get rid of that. So x squared plus y minus 3 squared, and 1 squared is just 1. So you should always simplify it as far as you can. Okay, so maybe try this one on your own. Label the center, radius, and then plug it into your equation. Okay, all right. Hopefully you did that. So here is the center would be, it's just going to be right in the middle. Some of the students, I saw someone who did lines this way before they found the center, something like this, and then they said, oh, okay, that's the center. So the center would be -1, -1, 2. And then the radius, you just go from there to any direction. So you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, or you could even go up 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't really matter because the radius is constant. So radius would be 4. We'll plug it into our equation. So x minus a -1 gives you a +1, plus y minus 2 equals 4 squared. So that gives us 16. Okay. So I would suggest memorizing the equation, writing it down whenever you need to, just to make sure you don't forget that it's going to change its sign when you plug it in or when you take it out. And remember that it's radius squared. So like these ones, a lot of students forget and just put 4. Okay, or they think about it backwards and they write down 2. They do the square root of r, or something like that. So just be cautious and you'll be good. Okay, here's another one. You could try these two. Center is 3, 4, and the radius, I'm going to go this direction, is 2. So x minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to 2 squared, which is 4. Center is 1, 0. Radius is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our equation is going to be x minus 1 squared plus y minus 0, well that's just y, so y squared is equal to 5 squared, which is 25. All right, identify the center and radius of each circle. So identify the center and radius. Here the center would be 0, 0, and the radius is 6, so we take the square root, and then we're going to sketch the graph. So basically the opposite of what we just did. So our center is here, radius is 6, so we'll go 6 in each direction. Require that you have those 5 points, the center and those 4 points, north, south, east, and west. Okay, and do your best to do a circle. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just make sure you have your points listed. Okay, I don't want you to just be like, oh, I don't know. Okay, just do good. Okay, here's our center is 3, negative 2. So again, it's going to be the opposite sign of what's inside. So 3, negative 2 with a radius of 2. So square root. Go 2 in each direction. Okay. All right, try and see if you can do these two by yourself. So here our center is negative 4, 4. Negative 4, 4. With a radius of 1. Okay, make sure you write all that stuff down. Here we had our, center would be negative 3, 0, and a radius of the square root of 10. So here's something we need to talk about. So negative 3, 0, and then a radius of square root of 10. All right, so this is the only case where I want you to write the decimal or find the decimal and then use that as your radius. So here, square root of 10. Boop, boop, boop. It's a snow day, and I'm making these videos for you guys. So there's those, you're going to have some bells going on as we go. So they still have the bells going. All right, so get your calculator. Definitely need to have a calculator to do this. We're going to use our square root of 10, and that gives us 3.16227766. Okay, but that's all you really need. You can probably even just round to 3.2. Okay, so you're going to go 3 in each direction plus a little bit. So 3.2, maybe right there, just a teeny bit past 3. Okay, and that's what I'm going to be asking for. If you have, oops, that's not very circle-ish. Something like that will be fantastic. Okay? All right, and last but not least, it says, write the equation of a circle given the center and a point on the circle. This process is very similar to finding the a value of a quadratic in 6.2. So it's basically the same thing. I feel like it's a little easier, but we have the center and we have a point, and we want to find, we're first going to need to figure out what is radius squared. So we know our equation, I'll rewrite it right here, is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. All right, so the center, we know that's the h and that's the k. A point on the circle, just like it was before on our other problems in Unit 6, is a point. Point will always be our x and our y. So we're going to plug in everything that we have. So 15 minus a negative 2 gives us a positive 2 squared plus y is 2, minus k, well k is a negative 3, so it gives us a positive 3, squared is equal to the radius squared. We don't know what the radius is. All right, so now we just need to simplify. So that would be 17 squared plus 5 squared. Then you probably want to use your calculator and figure out what 17 squared is. So that's 289 plus 25 is equal to radius squared. And we add those together, that gives us 314 is equal to the radius squared. All right, and if you wanted to, you could take the square root of that and figure out what the radius is. But what's missing is the radius squared. So we don't, to be able to come up with the equation, we don't need to know what the radius is. We just need to know what the radius squared is. I mean, if you wanted to, here we would want to just write it as the square root of 314 because we don't want to write it as a decimal. But we don't need to figure out what the radius is. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute that in to our equation. And we're going to leave x and y as x and y. So we'll have x plus 2, it's going to be the same what we wrote here, squared, plus y plus 3 squared, so same thing that's there, is equal to 314. And that would be your answer. Okay, so I'd like you to try B, C, and D. I think I had you guys work on that on the board. So here, this would be our center, H and K, X and Y. So we'd do 10 minus 1 squared plus Y is 15 minus 0 squared is equal to radius squared. So 9 squared plus 15 squared is the radius squared. 81 plus 15 squared is 225. And then add those two together. That gives us 306. Oops. And then we're just going to rewrite our equation. So we'll have x minus 1 squared plus y squared equals 306. Okay, again, I often pull that information from here, just so I don't have to look at it again. It's already there. Okay, try this one. For size, we're going to do, this is, again, I'd like you to write down the h and k, x and y every time you do this. So negative 17 minus a negative gives us a positive 12, plus y, which is 12 minus 11 squared, is equal to the radius squared. So this gives us a negative 5 squared plus 1 squared. Gives us 25 plus 1 gives us 26 is radius squared. Okay, and then we'll plug in plug it all in except for the x and y. So we'll have x plus 12 plus y minus 11 equals 26. D, let's try this. Again, this is our h and our k and our x and our y. Point will always be our x and y. So we'll do 12 minus 14 squared plus negative 13. Excuse me, sorry. Minus a negative 10 gives us a plus 10 squared equals the radius squared. So here we got negative 2 squared plus negative 3 squared equals the radius squared. So 4 plus 9 is the radius squared, or 13. We'll plug everything in except for the x and y, so we'll have x minus 14 squared plus y plus 10 squared is equal to 13. All right, well, if you have any questions for those, let me know. Those are sometimes a little tricky. All right, so we got E and F, basically the same, except they tell us what the radius is, so we don't need to figure that out. So we'll just do x minus a -3 gives us a +3. And then we'll do y minus 2 squared is equal to the radius squared, which is 36. Okay, so try this one. Pause and give that a try. We'll have x minus 5 squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to radius squared, which is 81. Okay. All right, well, again, if you have any questions, please let me know. See ya.